What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Blake&VishSports, Sports, episode 47. Three more episodes till the 50. We're back after quite a long hiatus. I was having Wi-Fi issues here at my house, so we were unable to stream for a week. A lot has happened in that week. Unfortunately, those were topics we just couldn't talk about, but there's still a lot more to talk about with the NFL season right around the corner. Preseason finished yesterday. Blake, what's up?
Yeah, nothing too much. Just the preseason is over, which is always good and bad because it's kind of fun, seeing your backups play and your rookie guys get more snaps or your first glimpse. But then when it's over, you get to actually, kind of see your players play meaningful snaps. So it's a good and bad thing. And I guess I'm excited for fantasy football too, because that's obviously starting back up. I know you're not in it, but I'm in a few things, and so it's always fun getting to find out who I'll be cheering for this year, um, as it always is. But yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I watched Jordan Love on Saturday, I think. I'm not sure there's a lot to be cheering about in Green Bay after next year with
There was.
when Aaron Rodgers leaves. So
Oh, he looked good besides a couple plays.
he
Couple
looked
re-
just like so. Not before we start off on what we have planned. I thought it was funny because we talked about him on our last stream before we had all these technical issues, and we talked about how the big improvement was that he seemed to just be more consistent with his accuracy and decision making, even if it was maybe a little too conservative. And then he reverted to college Jordan Love, where he single
one
handedly in
throw.
one game made two of the worst decisions and worst throws I've seen all preseason, but he also made one of the best throws. That whole shot was special.
Yeah, no, his arm was. You can just tell how big his arm is, and that's I think the thing I'm most excited for. Going from Rodgers to him, it's like they both just have absolute cannons. For
Clark
our
to Rodgers to him.
Yeah, it'll be a seamless transition, hopefully. uh,
All right, so let's get into it. Obviously, we're going to talk Niners, two quarterbacks. We're going to talk Justin Fields. We're going to talk Mac Jones, Cam Newton. But we're going to start somewhere a little bit different. And we're going to talk about a player that here at Blake&Vish Sports, maybe we were little less high on during the consensus
yeah,
than the consensus before the draft. And that is Jamar Chase. He's had kind of a rocky camp. There's been some reports about his inability to get separation. Those reports have also been refuted by others who say he's at a great camp. And
mhm,
he's come into this preseason, and a lot of people already started writing him off because he's been dropping the ball like nobody else in this
mhm.
preseason. It feels like he dropped the one pass Joe Burrow threw on a little bubble screen. That was a little disappointing. So, Blake, I'm just going to kick it over to you. Should the Bengals be worried about Jamar Chase's issues with drops?
I'd say in the overall, no. Clearly, the guy hasn't played in 2 years. It could just be the yips or whatever, and that's what I think it is. I just had two main takeaways. So the first one was the ball he dropped in the most recent game. You mentioned it. First play of the game, I want to say. Bubble screen to him. Maybe this was supposed to be like, in my mind, this was past. This was the play that's a confidence booster. Get him in space. He's amazing after the catch, right? He's maybe not the best in the world or the best even in his class, but he's really good. He's a big dude, fast, strong, all of that. This was supposed to be the play that, builds his confidence. He can, get the ball on a run, nothing too difficult. He's already separated, all of that, and he drops it. And that to me is just like, that just is even more confidence killer right there. So that was tough. And you mentioned the reports in camp too. I think the week leading up to this past game, the main thing I saw was fantastic week of camp for Jamar Chase. So you're thinking, all right, he's gonna, flip the switch. He's got it now, and then just the drop. It was tough. I think in the overall, though, my takeaway was that it seems like a lot of the guys that took this past year off have really maybe been a little rusty or not as hyped up as they are not showed in at least the preseason, which again, just to say it is meaningless, of course, but you'd want to get somewhat of a taste. They have struggled a little bit, and there's a few guys. Penei Sewell, who was very highly touted by both me and you, we were really high on him. he's struggled for the Lions. Jamar Chase in the games, he's had drops. Trey Lance, even out of all the rookie quarterbacks, I wouldn't say he's performed like one of the best three. You could say he's been the fourth, maybe the third. I'd even argue that's a stretch, but there's been, I guess, inconsistencies or a little rust from all three of those guys. They're all top 10 picks, all highly touted, and they all skipped the previous year. So I guess that was my main takeaway in how it seemed like those guys or those type of guys who did sit out the prior year have been struggling in this preseason. And maybe that is the cobwebs of not playing a whole year and playing competitive football. But that is something that I found really interesting.
Yeah, so to first start off with his drops, because I more or less agree with just about everything you said. I don't think his drops specifically are a concern at all. I have other problems and other things that concern me about Jamar Chase, but those things concerned me when he came out of LSU. His hands, they were never a concern when he came out of LSU.
Yep.
He had maybe the best hands in the draft, him or Devonta Smith. He had unbelievably strong hands at the catch point. He has unbelievable hand-eye coordination to maintain his keep his eyes on the ball through contact. He has unbelievable strength at the catch point. To me, it's just, like you mentioned, he might just be pressing a little bit because he hasn't played football in so long. He's just amped up to play, and he's just dropping passes. His hands are excellent. I don't expect his hands or drops to be a continued issue for Jamar Chase. Now, you talked about the other aspect of the players who've maybe not played a year being a little more inconsistent throughout this preseason, and then in comparison to the guys who played last year. I mean, Lance, right? He's had moments where he's looked unbelievable, and he's also had moments that have been less than. And a lot of it could be just the fact that, he's rusty. He hasn't had game experience in a while prior to this. Jamar Chase, similar type of thing. Penei Sewell, it's been a rough go in preseason, especially at right tackle. I mean, his third play of the entire preseason, Gregory Rousseau beat him for a sack, and Greg Rousseau didn't do much else in that game, but he beat him for a sack. And so it's been consistent from that standpoint. But honestly, so I'm with you in regards to these guys might just be rusty, and that's really what's holding them back. But in regards to Jamar Chase, I do think there's other aspects to be concerned. I think that report about separation, I'm not shocked by that. When I watched him in college, that was the biggest reason why I thought Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle were the two best receivers in this draft. I didn't think Jamar Chase created space or separation, and I didn't think he won consistently and quickly enough off the line of scrimmage. I thought too many times it would be him in the corner, hand fighting up and down the field, and he might out muscle the corner at the catch point, and it's unbelievable that he did that. And his stats for a 19-year-old were truly phenomenal. But I felt that it also helped. Joe Burrow's ball placement helped him a lot, and I just felt like the ways he won were also ways he could get beat. Like you go back to, I always bring up this game when I talk about Jamar Chase because it's maybe the game that really, I mean, everybody already knew Jamar Chase was a superstar. He won the Blake and Toff Award, but that game against AJ Terrell in the national championship game, yes, he baptized AJ Terrell at the catch point multiple times in that game. But AJ Terrell also won quite a few reps against Jamar Chase in that game. It just so happens that, he had a few bad plays at the catch point. Jamar Chase is a really, really talented player. And when I saw AJ Terrell, who was a top 20 pick at corner, doing that, it's a little bit concerning because elite wide receiver talents, guys that you draft in the top 5 of the draft, are not the people that get beat like that by good corners. Like, I mean, the pushback really from both of us was obviously we had him as the third best receiver, which is not really much of it's not a bad thing because Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, and himself were all really, really talented. Our real pushback was that we felt he wasn't generational. And to me, the generational tag, the elite tag, the kind of tag that you use to draft a receiver in the top 5, you have to be an AJ Green type. You have to be Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, the kind of guys. Well, all of their NFL careers have not turned out the way they expected. But when they came out of college, they had the production Jamar Chase had. They had the consistency in terms of winning, and they were all elite level athletes. I question Jamar Chase's overall down the field speed and burst just a little bit. I know he ran 4.38. To me, he looks more 4.45 than 4.38. And I also do just question his ability in terms of just how he consistently wins. I think just physicality is not sustainable in my personal opinion.
And I think you kind of said it best. Like, he was known for being the guy that can make catches in traffic, the guy that can bully corners at the point of attack, which is a really good skill to have. I mean, if you remember, that's what Dez was the best at. Dez was amazing at doing that. Now, Dez was also, he had a bigger wingspan,
Catch radius.
yeah. So that also, you would think that the one thing he would be best at is, when he is going across the middle, is coming in with the ball, because he was so good at that at LSU. I think it's more of a surprise than anything. And, we're not saying he's a bust. Like, we're obviously not trying to insinuate that because he's had a few drops. It's just more of the fact that when you do take a receiver number 5, you kind of hope they can hit the ground running, as that's a position that really seems to, at least in recent years, been something that transfers really easily. I mean, you think of the successes, even last year's rookie class with Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Ayuk, Claypool, Jerry Jeudy had some success as well. There's a ton of other guys. That's only last year too, and the other years even better. So when you see a position that does usually easily transfer and he's struggling out the gate, it could be a concern. I think my bottom line is that it is interesting seeing these guys who missed last year, Sewell, Chase, and who was the other guy we said? Lance. They've had pretty inconsistent moments, which I think is my main takeaway from that. And it's changed the whole scouting from last year. I mean, just one example. Do you remember Wade, the cornerback from Ohio State, nickel? If he wouldn't have played last year, he would have been a first or second round pick, and he moved to the outside. And
you think so?
He was touted as a first round pick.
To me, he was like Matt Barkley getting touted as a first round pick. He wasn't really talented enough to be a first round pick. People just said he was a first round pick. I mean, how many nickels that played?
He would have been a top 50 pick, I'd imagine. The way he was being talked about.
He was touted that way. I'm not sure if he would have ended up going
Fair enough.
Personally. Yeah. That's my guess, because he did play in a loaded secondary with 2 first-round picks in Jeff Okudah and Damon Arnett.
That does help.
Yeah. But going back to Chase, right, and I want to reiterate the point that you mentioned about how he's definitely not a bust, right? Like, there's no way of saying that right now. Nobody knows that, right? And catching the football is one of the best things he does. He doesn't drop the football. He didn't drop it at LSU, and he has really strong hands. And you brought up the Dez Bryant comparison. So, like, you would expect that because it's something he's naturally done so well in the other few times we've seen him. You would expect that to naturally just get better organically. You wouldn't have much worry about that. To me, the separation issue, going back to that, is a worry. And it's a secondary issue in its own sense, because his play style is really important. And you brought up the comparison of Dez Bryant. And that Dez Bryant comparison is really important because there's a Next Gen Stats has this kind of graph. And do you know that there's a linear relationship between tight window catch rate and arm length, right?
Yeah,
linear relationship. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I saw that.
The longer arms,
right,
the longer arms you have, the better you are in tight window catch rate. You brought up Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant is 6'3", 220, and has 34-inch arms.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase is 6 foot, 200 pounds, and has 30-inch arms. That's where the concerns to me, if Jamar Chase isn't separating, become a little bit more real when you draft a receiver number 5 overall. His hands, to me, should not be an issue. Nobody should worry about it. I have no questions about his hands, and I think that they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just been one of those things this camp that has just been really strange. Like, this, of all the things we've read, we talked about the separation. That was a concern, before he was drafted. And now seeing him play, the last thing you would think he would be struggling with is actually catching the ball, which is just, I guess, where there could be cause for concern for some people.
Definitely. So overall, both of us feel, honestly, there should be no concern with Jamar Chase and the drops. There might be other reasons to be concerned with Jamar Chase, but those are reasons that we both felt should have been points of concern before the draft itself.
Yep.
Moving on to the topic that I think most people are here for. 49ers did a really interesting thing on Sunday when they played the Raiders, right? And for full disclosure, to be fair, this is a preseason game. The Raiders obviously were nowhere near prepared for this type of quarterback transition, and it was the Raiders' second and third team defense. None of their high profile starters played, but the 49ers unveiled this new interesting two quarterback strategy. And it was unlike any two quarterback strategy we've seen in a long time.
In the
I mean,
NFL.
we've right in the NFL. It's been a very long time. I mean, people bring up Drew Brees, Taysom Hill, and Taysom Hill spared Drew Brees was for plays. We didn't see an even 50-50 where Drew Brees on a given drive would just be pulled out on second and 10, and then come back in 4 plays later. That was very rare. Lamar Jackson, Joe Flacco, they tried this. It worked horribly in Baltimore. They never let Lamar get into a rhythm, and Joe Flacco probably had the worst body language in America when this happened. Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz, they kind of did this last year. They ran a few run plays with Carson Wentz, but to me, it was predictable when Jalen Hurts came in there running the football, and you kind of knew what they were doing. But the Niners took it to a next level, and they took a next level in a lot of different ways. But they took a first-round pick rookie who they traded 2 first-round picks up and a third one and drafted number 3 overall, and they have a quarterback that they're paying $26 million this year, and they were just rotating them. They were literally rotating them like it was you play 2 plays, you play 2 plays. You play 3 plays, I play 3 plays. And it was interesting. It was effective against the Raiders' second-team defense on Sunday. But, Blake, what are your thoughts on the overall 2 quarterback strategy? And if the 49ers do this week 1, week 2, week 3 of this season until I guess they figure out who's going to be there, until they figure out whether Trey Lance is 100% ready to take over, do you think it will remain effective?
Here's just my initial thoughts. Like, this is just such a wacky concept. I feel like, at least being, I've never played quarterback, but I feel like, just from watching it, it would just be weird and trying to get a rhythm or any consistency if you're coming in and your leash is so tight that if you make one errant throw where you do one thing wrong, you hand it off wrong or whatever, you're just pulled next play, middle of drive. Like, that is just such a short leash. I cannot imagine that being good for either of these guys' psyches. Not that Jimmy G's is probably good as it is. They drafted his replacement. But yeah, that I think strikes me as interesting. Second point, I just don't get the purpose behind it. Like, the best case scenario is you'll catch them off guard and forcing them to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. Well, at the same time, your offense is going to have to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. And then the receivers, one play they're going from Jimmy G's better, I guess, not as hard throw, maybe a little better touch on it, to Trey Lance's fastball that seems to go high for whatever reason. That for the receivers is tough. So that from that standpoint, like, would that be the best part, is just the defense has to plan for 2? I just don't remember a recent situation where teams were constantly pulling quarterbacks like this, and it turned out good in the long term. I'd say Tua and Fitzpatrick was kind of like this, except theirs was more just full game stuff. And yeah, they had a winning record, but I don't know, man. I just don't think that was good for Tua or Fitzpatrick, because Fitzpatrick played well, and Tua played pretty good too for a rookie. It's just it was just so weird. I don't think it's good for either of the quarterbacks. I think you just gotta put your fist on the table and say, we're going this guy or this guy. Make a statement and roll with it until either A, it doesn't work, or B, it does work, and you have a solidified plan at quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, we do have to see what they end up doing. Maybe the Raiders game was not how they're going to do it week 1, week 2. Maybe they start Jimmy G and just bring in Lance for 1 or 2 plays in the red zone to use his running aspect. And I personally do not like that, especially when you draft Trey Lance where you draft him. But I'm not unopposed to that, because I understand what you're trying to do. You're just trying to get his skill set on the field and use his athleticism to your advantage. So I understand that. I actually have not thought about the Tua Fitzpatrick angle of all of this until you
Mhm.
brought it up. That's a great point. It was a totally different circumstance, but to
Yes.
me, it showed a lack of faith in Tua
Mhm.
throughout last season when they drafted him number 5 overall. He's coming off a serious injury, and consistently at every major moment or kind of turning point within a ball game, they just yank him and go to Fitzpatrick because it felt like they were more comfortable with Fitzpatrick winning them football games. And why are you starting Tua at all? There was no point in starting Tua
Yeah.
because they felt Fitzpatrick gave them the best chance to win, and they ran their team like that. So that was confusing. In terms of the 49ers aspect of it, you brought it up. I also am confused because to me, if Lance is good enough to play 50% of the snaps, then why not just play him 100% of the snaps? And if Lance isn't good enough to play 100% of the snaps or the 50% of the snaps, why not just name Jimmy G your starter and
Exactly,
have
right?
Lance spell him occasionally? Like, to me, it just feels like they're not even 100% sure on how this quarterback competition is going. Grant this morning mentioned that he felt it was like they're not comfortable with Jimmy G as their starting quarterback, but they don't feel like Trey Lance is as far along as they feel. That's how he read the situation. I actually think
Mhm.
that's a little bit harsh personally. I don't think they see it that way just because they have invested so much into both guys individually in different ways. Jimmy G monetarily, Trey Lance in terms of money and assets. But I am confused overall of how they're going to make this entire two quarterback thing work because to me, even Kyle Shanahan, they asked him after the game, like, what's your science behind alternating these quarterbacks? And he said, I don't even think about it. It's just whatever I feel. And to me, that makes sense. But once teams start getting a feel for it and tendency, oh, if Lance is on the field, they're going to run these run plays. And if Jimmy G's on the field, it's going to be an obvious drop back situation. Oh, they don't want to drop Lance back. Or, oh, they don't want to do this with Jimmy G. And I just think it feels like you brought up the rhythm aspect. Which quarterback is going to get rhythm into the game? And I think it's important because if you're playing a tight ball game, who's going to play fourth quarter with 5 minutes left and you have an important 3rd and 13? Are you just going to ride whichever quarterback's been playing better till then? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Which then brings me back to this team, no matter what, is going to be a running football team. I think we saw that clear as day. When Jimmy G was in, the run game was effective. When Trey Lance was in, the run game is effective. This team is built to run the football. They have a surplus amount of running backs. They have a great run blocking offensive line, and they have an outstanding run game scheme. And that's where I don't get like why do you need to mix and match these quarterbacks? Like, if you want to run the ball 40 times a game, because to me, that's what they have to do to win, because I don't think they can drop back in general with either one of these quarterbacks, then just run with Trey Lance. And
Mhm.
if you feel Trey Lance isn't ready and you don't want him executing your offense, then why not just name Jimmy your starter for now? Bring Lance occasionally to spell him. I don't get not naming your starter, then having Jimmy G technically start, but him and Lance play the same amount of snaps. If that's
Mhm.
the way they're going to go, to me, that's confusing. Maybe I'm not open minded, and maybe this is a revolutionary concept from Kyle Shanahan that's going to work, and I'm going to look like an idiot. If that happens, I'll fully admit, like, wow, I was so stupid. How could I not be open minded and think that was going to work? But at this moment, I'm personally not that invested in this idea, and I would just prefer they would name one guy their starter.
I'm with you, and you actually brought up a point I've been thinking about too with this whole situation. Let's say the score is 24-10. Jimmy G's been playing better than Lance the whole game, and with 8 minutes to go, Lance scores. Your defense gets a stop. Do you send out Lance, who just scored, or do you send out Jimmy G, who's had a better game? Like, those are the questions that are going to be asked. And then, oh, when it doesn't work or it does work, you're going to be saying, should we keep doing this? It worked this one time, although we didn't have general success with it. Or are you just going to be saying, we need to pick one? Like, I think there's too many questions that we have
I'll,
unseen
I'll
about it.
I'll throw you an opposite scenario. What
Sure.
happens if you're playing a really good game? Jimmy maybe is inconsistent in that game, and Trey Lance is coming along. He's playing great, has some momentum. You go back to Jimmy, and Jimmy throws an interception, and now the other team takes the
Mhm.
momentum because he throws an interception, or vice versa. Lance throws an
Yeah.
interception. Jimmy's been playing great. How do you get around that fact? One guy was playing so well, and you just switched him out for the other guy who just turned the football over. I mean, these are all questions I wish somebody would ask Kyle Shanahan, I feel like they just go with, oh, okay, he's running a 2 quarterback system. He wants both of these guys to play. But I think these are questions that need to be asked because I think we need to know these things. I feel like he won't tell us. He has no reason to tell us, but I think it's important. Obviously, he's definitely considered these things, but these are my questions with the entire idea of a 2 quarterback strategy, which is why I'm confused that at the moment it feels like this is what the Niners want to do.
And I think I like just trying to find the competitive advantage with doing this, right? And I think that would be it, is that the other, as much as your team doesn't know what's happening, the other team doesn't know either. And they're going to have to game plan for 2 quarterbacks. If the Lions know going in that Lance and Garoppolo will be playing, they're not only going to prepare for one or the other. That, they're going to have to kind of scheme for both of them. And, what do we think Shanahan's going to do if Trey Lance is in versus Jimmy G?
But my thing is, I think the Lions, if they're playing the Niners week 1, knowing that they drafted Trey Lance, I think they would already be preparing for Trey Lance, along with Jimmy G. I'm sure whoever's playing the Bears week 1, I'm sure the Rams are probably prepping for Justin Fields as much as Andy Dalton. I'm sure that there's a lot of different people, like I'm sure the Dolphins are preparing for both Mac Jones and Cam Newton. Like, it's just generally because they drafted the guy. You don't know when they're going to make that switch. It could be mid-game week 1, the way it was with Deshaun Watson, the way it was with Josh Allen. Both of those games, guys replaced their starter week 1 halfway through those games, and they ended up starting basically the rest of the season. So I would be under the assumption they're already preparing for that. In terms of the game planning aspect of it, sure, it looked really, really good and seamless on Sunday, and everybody's head was spinning, and the Raiders didn't know what was going on. Again, that was the Raiders' second team and third team defense.
In a preseason.
So that does need to be taken into account because, yes, it did look good. I'm not going to say it didn't. It really did look good. Both drives were really effective. But the Niners were coming out with their starters with a clear intent on showing off something. And the Raiders clearly were not interested in playing anybody relevant. I mean, Nathan Peterman played that game start to finish, which tells you all you need to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something we haven't seen either. And I think that's the part that's maybe tough for us to wrap our mind around, because if it is such a revolutionary idea, like maybe more teams would do this. But how many teams in the history of the NFL have had a top 5 paid quarterback, and then they trade 2 firsts and a third to go up and get this guy who's they really like at number 3? We've just never seen, I guess, something like this, and I think there's maybe a reason for it.
I mean, to me, if you're going to run a 2-quarterback system, it would be best to have 2 cheap quarterbacks. They have 2 highly paid quarterbacks in different ways, and I think Jesse right here nails it. To me, this preseason, it feels like Shanahan wanted to give Lance every opportunity to be the quarterback. I don't think Lance sees that opportunity yet. And so, I don't think they're comfortable. I mean, if they were comfortable with Jimmy G starting this year and all of that, why did they trade so much to go get a quarterback? You trade so much to go get a quarterback at pick 3, not so that he can start 2 years from now, because you want him to be your starter now. You draft that quarterback to be your starter now, right? I mean, they traded up. They traded up a month before the draft, so they didn't trade up for a player. They traded up for a quarterback. That's where I brought up this distinction this morning. The Chiefs traded up specifically, in my opinion, for Patrick Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes went number 4 in that draft, I don't think the Chiefs trade up for Deshaun Watson. They didn't trade up for a quarterback. They traded up for Patrick Mahomes. The Niners traded up for a quarterback, and that quarterback ended up being Trey Lance. They didn't trade up for Trey Lance. They traded up for a quarterback because they did it a month before the draft and then further studied guys and ultimately landed at Trey Lance, which seems to be a great decision so far. And I think that's where Jesse nails it. I think if Trey Lance was starting, if they could definitively name him the starter, Jimmy G would 100% be the backup. I just think at this point they can't do that. So they're just trying to give Lance every opportunity to continue to grow and eventually seize that job, hopefully by week 3, week 4.
And at the minimum, he's starting against the Bears, because there's no way that there won't be a Justin Fields versus Trey Lance game on Halloween. Like, there's just no way that doesn't happen.
Well, I'm going to that game. I really want to see
You'll
Andy
see.
Dalton
You'll
versus
see both
Jimmy
of them.
Garoppolo.
You will
I'm
see both
playing.
of them.
I'm playing that. That game is going to be awesome. But it
Yeah.
looks like we have a few questions, so let's get to them and then go back to our show. Lucky World says it's a pretty good idea to switch out the receiver. It's a pretty good idea. Receivers will switch out per QB. Uh, I think what he's saying is he thinks that the receivers will change as the QB comes. I highly doubt this. The Niners don't have
Yeah.
5 receivers that you can rotate into games. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are going to play just about every snap at receiver, and it looks like Sherfield's the number 3 guy. I have watched a lot of preseason, a lot of Niners preseason, a lot of Niners preseason film. I don't think you can just rotate in a Mo Sanu and a Jalen Hurd and a Travis Benjamin or Juwan Jennings, whoever those guys make it. To me, those guys shouldn't be rotated in when you have a Deebo and Ayuk. So I disagree with this, Lucky Probes.
I do too. Like, if you have two really good receivers, which Debo and Ayuk are, they're not coming off the field. I mean, this isn't like the 2010 Packers where they legitimately had like 5 really good receivers and Finley. Like no team has like 5 good receivers. That just doesn't happen. You
Tampa
play.
does.
Tampa has 3.
Nah,
3
Scotty
good.
Miller. Scotty Miller.
Scotty Miller is pretty good. I'll give you that. And Tyler Johnson, also interesting. But they are not at the same place that you would consider them to be. You'd ever consider playing them over, Antonio Brown or Evans or whatever. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, maybe if they're going for a different type of look and they bring out more tight ends or something because they think Dwelly can handle the fastball from Lance. I don't know, but yeah, if you have 2 good receivers, like they don't come off the field necessarily for other lesser receivers.
Yeah, and you would hope that Debo and Ayuk build the chemistry with Lance because you're better off Debo and Ayuk being with Lance than Lance is better off. Like putting Lance with Jalen Hurd and Travis Benjamin and Juwan Jennings and Mo Sanu is not fair to him. You really gonna line up? You're gonna play the Rams and you're gonna line up Mo Sanu on one side against Ramsey and Darius Williams with the safety over the top is gonna have Travis Benjamin on the other side. And you're gonna have Trey Lance in the pistol. Like, come on, Lucky Worlds.
Yeah, yeah.
The coach, by the way, he was very angry at Grant this morning. He was saying he was going for all fairy tales and narratives. The coach, I thought you were hilarious this morning, by the way. I love Grant, but I also loved your back and forth banter. Big fan of you, the coach. He says playing both QBs does wonder for the maturation of the system throughout the season. Our system is copied a lot. Playing this vanilla gives Kyle leverage he's never had offensively. It's ongoing.
But I guess my question is, why would you handicap yourself by playing vanilla? Like, isn't what makes a good coach is that they have complex schemes and things they can do and, create that other defenses don't know how to stop. Like, I think that's like the whole point of what makes Kyle so good is that he has all these innovative schemes that, other coaches do run them, but not to the extent that he does, especially in the run game. So I feel like that would be losing your number one competitive advantage, as like Kyle would be losing that.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the other coaches that replicate a scheme, because there's about 15 offenses that run a version of this scheme, they all have their own different nuances to them. They cannot replicate this offense with Trey Lance. You can't. Mike LaFleur can't run this with Zach Wilson. Kevin Stefanski can't run this with Baker Mayfield. Arthur Smith can't run this with Matt Ryan. Matt LaFleur can't run it with Aaron Rodgers. What's his name? Sean
McVay.
McVay can't run it with Matthew Stafford. They cannot run this offense with Trey Lance because they don't have that athletic rushing quarterback. So defense is playing you vanilla. The coach says, read the comment. Defense is playing you vanilla. I don't think defenses will play it vanilla. At some point, you can start tendencying. If Lance is in, you're going to see these type of runs, these type of plays, because there's only so much you can put on the other 10 players. If Lance is in, we got to know this offense for the game. If Jimmy's in, we got to know this offense for the game. So I personally think defenses aren't stupid enough where they just play one coverage or one scheme because they're so nervous about it. I think they'll start to tendency it. I mean, we've seen how well in the division, like Seattle plays this run game really well, especially Bobby Wagner. I don't know what he has tells. I don't know whether it's the offensive lineman or something, but he always has tells on what's going on with when it's run, when it's pass, and what they do magic. This offense is known for doing magically is making the run and the pass look the exact same. The coach says, I said defense is paying us vanilla. Well, hey, we pulled up the comment anyway, but we appreciate the extra $2. We appreciate the donation, the coach, and we love your spirit. We love your fire.
Yeah, I mean, also like before you get tendency to, like even in the very early stages, like sure, it might work for a couple weeks, but what happens if you get to the playoffs or you get deeper into the season and there is film on what you're doing when you have these two quarterbacks out there? Like, I think that's like sure, it might work. What does that really get you in the long term? Really not much.
I agree. And the other aspect of it is sure you can look how defenses might be stressed having to prepare for two different quarterbacks at invariable times. But what about the offense? Like, how does this give your offense rhythm? That's my question. Like, what happens if
Yeah.
Jimmy G's first play is a sack and you're now at 2nd and 17? You bring Trey Lance in and he runs the ball for 4 yards, and now you go back to Jimmy G on 3rd and 13? Like, the defense can play that vanilla, but how do you get rhythm for a quarterback?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. Yeah, I can't see that happening very much either. And we brought up the other points too, with sort of like if one of them's playing really good and the other one, and then he throws a pick, do you bring in the other guy? Like how do you manage that in the fourth? It's very convoluted, I think, is the.
I mean, and at this moment, we're going off of 20 snaps against the Raiders and using that as our frame of reference for what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We do have to say, to be fair, full disclosure, we do need the context of seeing what actually happens 2 weeks from now. Maybe this offense does not look like how it looked Sunday against the Raiders 2 weeks from now. Maybe it's Jimmy G's the starter. He plays 90% of the snaps, and Lance just comes in and runs a couple red zone plays. Or maybe it's Lance is the starter. He plays 100% of the snaps. We don't know. So to be fair, we are speculating, and we could be totally wrong by making these observations and complaining about the two quarterback system, because that might not be what they're doing. But based on the information we have right now, this is just how we feel about it.
And then I think this is kind of the main point we've been saying, or like not saying directly, but trying to get across is like this probably won't work against, a really good defense, like potentially even the Rams or I don't know, Broncos, someone like that.
Yeah. So
we can go on though.
Yeah, we can move on. I mean, we're gonna have a Q&A, so I think we will have more questions and we can talk about this. I think a lot of people are really high on this. Maybe we're a bit lower on it. And the issue we're having is nobody has enough information to just continue talking about it. But I would love to see what actually happens 2 weeks from now. But at the moment, if they run it the same way they ran it against the Raiders, I personally don't think it'll work. Blake doesn't think if it works. But hey, if it works, 17 weeks from now, we'll be sitting right here telling you how wrong we were, how genius Kyle Shanahan is. So that's the nice thing about this. And so let's move on to another first-round quarterback. And that's the first-round quarterback from our hometown, the city of Chicago. Justin Fields, 11th overall pick in the draft. I think it's unfortunate that we need to have this conversation after the preseason we just saw him have. But for whatever reason, Andy Dalton is starting. So I guess we need to have this conversation. But Blake, tell us why Justin Fields should be starting week 1.
Sure. And I kind of want to say first why I think Dalton is starting week 1. And it's more speculative than anything, but I think I want to get your thoughts on it. So when they originally signed him, they kind of named Dalton the starter. When going into the draft, I don't think that the Bears thought Fields would fall to 11. I don't think the Bears thought that they would have the chance to get him. They kind of touted, we have Dalton, he's starting for us. Locker room got behind him. Next thing you know, you get Fields, who we thought would go number 3 or top 5 at worst, and now he's on the Bears. They traded up to get him. So I'm thinking it has to do either with the locker room or something with the front office, and that they just want him to start. Because I think by all accounts, Fields looks ready. Like, what more does he need to show? Throwing on the run, outside of the pocket, throwing in the pocket. I think he's looked phenomenal at all 3 of those areas. So I guess, what are your thoughts, or why do you think they have Dalton starting? Because I can't wrap my mind around this.
Yeah, I have no clue, but I think also it's they named him QB1, and I think they told him they might have promised him that you're gonna at least start this season, and they might
Sure.
be sticking with that because I don't know what he offers that Justin Fields doesn't, and they don't have a good offense. They don't have a good scheme, in my opinion. Matt Nagy doesn't do a lot for his quarterbacks. I mean, we saw what he did for Mitchell Trubisky. The best stretch of Mitchell Trubisky's career was being called by Bill Lazor, and they ran a version of the McVay offense, a lot of boots, heavy play action, using outside zone, and Mitchell Trubisky more or less excelled in that offense. He played like a legitimate starting quarterback, and to me, Justin Fields has been dynamic. He's been athletic. He's been accurate. He's been consistent with his decision making. He maybe moves out of the pocket a tad too quick for my liking at times, but more or less he makes enough plays for their offense, especially given that their offense itself doesn't have a lot of things, even in the preseason. But we've seen his offense in the regular season. It doesn't create a lot of space for other players. I mean, the best version of Matt Nagy's quote unquote genius offense was 2018 when Vic Fangio would create turnover after turnover. They would get the ball at the 20, and he would have one trick play up his sleeve that would involve Tariq Cohen getting the ball 3 times behind the line of scrimmage before eventually somehow advancing the ball. But there's no consistent bread and butter to their offense of what they do. The run game is very vanilla. They've never had been able to run the football consistently with Matt Nagy. And so to me, Justin Fields should just start because Justin Fields just continues to he's just a playmaker. He's going to make plays even if the offense doesn't have anything there. He's going to be able to push the ball down the field. He's just a very, very talented player. And I think he raises the ceiling of that offense with his explosiveness, and his throwing ability. And we've seen that already in this preseason itself, in the little we've seen him. I mean, the touchdown pass he threw against who did they play? Philadelphia?
I forget. It was the third game, though. It was the third
Yeah,
preseason.
I'm just blanking for whatever reason. I'm sorry, but the touchdown pass he threw to number 87 was
Dolphins.
ridiculous. Rolling out to his right, yeah, on
Whereas
his
the
back
Titans.
shoulder.
Titans, yeah.
Titans, excuse me,
Yeah.
Titans. Yes. For whatever reason, I thought Philadelphia. Ridiculous throw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess my main point that I keep going back to, I agree with the playmaker stuff. And just to expand on that, like, we've kind of talked about why the Bears quarterbacks were struggling in the past and what were some of the traits they had. Well, we go to Mike Glennon. Well, he wasn't mobile. Trubisky comes in, he's mobile, he's good outside of the pocket. That's where he's excelling best, when he's out and moving, not when he's forced to stay in the pocket. Nick Foles comes in, they have a little success, but overall, the issue remains that, he's just a statue back there with not a good O-line in front of him. And Trubisky helped alleviate some of that because he was mobile, right? Now, so what's the point when you have Dalton, who's not mobile at all? Tevin Jenkins is going to be out for a significant portion of this season with his back injury. So your O-line could be weak again. And I want to say they cut Charles Leno. I could be wrong about that, or they got rid of another offensive lineman. I want to say it was Leno. But I guess the main point I'm trying to say here is that having a mobile quarterback is probably the best thing you can do to help slow down a pass rush because they can escape the pocket. You can't blitz them as much. And so Fields is probably already a top 5 running quarterback as it is right now. Before the season even starts, I would catapult him already up there from what we've seen in all of that. So, yeah, him being behind a weaker O-line, he'll be able to help slow down the pass rush and, escape it when it is there. So I think that's kind of the main advantage. And what has he not shown you that Andy Dalton has besides just being a veteran? Besides that, because there really is not anything.
I agree with that, and I think this is funny. Yeah, that field throw did have a lot of wobble, but the accuracy and precision was, excuse me, right there. And we have seen some of Lance's wobblers have had insane accuracy and precision as well. So I think that's important to say. But yeah, overall to me, Justin Fields 100%. It should be a no-brainer at this point. They're just delaying the inevitable, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Uh, before we move on to Cam Newton and Mac Jones, I did want to bring up something. Never mind. Excuse me. Uh, the coach says 92 people and only 32 likes equals horrible. Get the likes up. Guys, please throw a like down in the comment section in the down below. Please listen to the coach. Subscribe if you haven't at Blake&VishSports. Sports. Comment down below all the reasons why we were wrong about the two quarterback system. I promise we can take it, and we will definitely be telling you how wrong we were if this is how they do it and it ends up working.
And thank
And
you,
so
Jamal. And we'll do
appreciate
our
it,
best.
Jamal. Appreciate it. Hey, the coach, you're the man. Even if we disagree about stuff, you are still the man. I loved the banter you were giving Grant this morning too. It was fantastic. But let's go to our final topic and the final rookie quarterback we're going to talk about today. And obviously, there's been quite a few quarterback competition results recently. Jameis Winston won the Saints job from Taysom Hill. That was shocking because I thought Sean Payton would never start anyone besides Taysom Hill once Drew Brees left. Teddy Bridgewater, also a little bit more of a shocking result because I thought Drew Lock, because of the draft investment, they would do whatever they can to start him no matter what. But they went with Taysom Hill, or excuse me, they went with Teddy Bridgewater as their starter. And finally, here's the third one, and it's Mac Jones versus Cam Newton. And this one had a little bit of a wrinkle to it with Cam Newton getting COVID. But who should start week one versus the Dolphins, Blake? Should Mac Jones start for the Patriots or should Cam Newton?
And I just want to preface this. For all the rookie quarterback competitions that there are, I think this one's the most interesting and the closest. And I would be cool if, personally, I think either way you can't go wrong. Like I could get behind either way. I think the Bears one and the 49ers, like I'm fully on board with the rookie, like 100% no way. This one I could genuinely see either or, but I am going to go with Mac Jones, and here's why. So first, I think his accuracy has been everything that we thought it could be and more. His passes have been super accurate, hitting people in stride. It doesn't matter if it's been the few deep balls that have been unfortunately dropped by Harry and then a few of the other guys. The intermediate stuff, the short stuff, it's all on time and in rhythm, and he looks fantastic. He just looks like a Patriots quarterback. I mean, after seeing Tom there for a while, you kind of get the same feel a little bit from him. I'm not trying to compare him, but you have to because he's on the Patriots, right? So there's that. And then here's the other angle too. Here's the other angle with it. But Cam Newton, the COVID situation, I think to me is something that will bite some teams this year if it's not handled. So from what has kind of been shown, it was issue. So he basically went to an outside medical treatment or something of that nature. And they were frustrated that he got put in the protocol because of that. And if you remember last year, Cam was looking great, and then he had something with COVID, and it kind of derailed his season a little bit because he was playing pretty well. He really was. That pushed him off track. And by all accounts, it seems that he is currently unvaccinated as he's been getting, tested daily, and they've all been negative. And I think that'll still hurt. Yeah, I'm not going to debate any of that, but I'm just saying that does play a factor, and it's something with the Vikings too that could hurt them. But staying on this, like that really, I think, opens the door for Mac Jones. And I'm not going to say he was perfect this preseason. I think especially the last game, he took a lot of sacks, held the ball a while. But with this offense and how much they do run the ball and how good their O-line is, I think he can go in there and play well. And he's shown more than enough to take that position. So I like it. I'm for Mac Jones, but I'd say it's like 55-45. Mac Jones is 55.
So I'm going to take the opposing view, and I'm going to say Cam Newton should start. And I do agree with every statement you made about Mac Jones. Mac Jones has been unbelievable this preseason. He's been confident. He's been decisive. He's been good in the He's been good in the pocket. He's been very accurate, like you mentioned. He's made great decisions. Besides the last game where he did take a couple extra sacks, his timing, his accuracy, all of that has been as advertised. And Mac Jones is being exactly what, and Brandon Hill said it best here in the comment section. He's exactly who everybody thought he was going to
Yeah.
be. He's accurate. He's got great sense of timing. He's a great decision maker. He understands where to go with the ball. He understands defensive leverage. All of those things, 100% true. And yet, I would still start Cam Newton because to me, Cam Newton's looked excellent in both the preseason games. He went 8 for 9 in the second preseason game, and he looked accurate and confident. I thought the quarterback competition was over. Then he got COVID, and in the Giants practices, Mac Jones was killing it. And of course, immediately the Boston media is all over Cam Newton and all loving Mac Jones. And we got people talking about how rap music is what's holding Cam Newton back. I'm pretty sure you listened to rap music when he was the MVP of the NFL. So
I don't know.
I just want to say that. No, it's I'm joking, but really those type of things are very frustrating. But what I wanted to say with Mac Jones is that, Cam Newton, is that the interception he threw to Blake Martinez in that game, it was basically a seam route from his own end zone to Jacoby Myers, and Blake Martinez intercepted it. It's just a throw that Mac Jones can't make. He threw the ball 35 yards on a rope over the linebacker's head with unbelievable accuracy. Jacoby Myers has to catch that football. He didn't. He couldn't secure the catch, and he dropped the ball into Blake Martinez's hands. Not Cam Newton's fault. Unbelievable throw. But the point in bringing up that throw is to say, Brandon Hill said it best. Mac Jones is unbelievably talented, but right now, to me, given the way this team is built and the fact that the run game is going to be the core of this team, they have a great, unbelievable run blocking offensive line, and they've discovered they also have a surplus of running backs with Ramondre Stevenson, JJ Taylor, I think it is, and of course Damian Harris, who's going to be a monster this season. They're going to really run the football. And when you're going to major in running the football, to me, Cam Newton's going to enhance your run game. And to me, in the pass game, there's just more bigger plays available. So I think Mac Jones from day one can be efficient, consistent, accurate, and he can be really, really good. It's just that I think there's a ceiling and opportunity here to be reached with Cam Newton this year. I think this team is very talented. And I think given that they signed a lot of people like Matt Judon, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, it is a veteran team. It's not a team built with Mac Jones to go into the future. I would start Cam Newton this year and see if you can realize that ceiling. Because to me, I think Cam Newton's capable of winning comeback player of the year if things go right. I know a lot of people are ready to write him off, but that throw to Jacoby Myers, that was a big time throw. Not a lot of quarterbacks can make that. And that looked like MVP Cam Newton to me. So I would run with Cam Newton just because I think there's a higher ceiling if Cam Newton's able to play at the level he's capable of than if Mac Jones is having his even continuing to play at the unbelievable level he's played thus far as a rookie.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing too is like last year was his first year back after, he had a bunch of injuries in Carolina, and he did look amazing last year. I mean, for the first bit of it, especially that Seahawks game, like he was dropping dimes in that game and he looked like old Cam. Now it was not always like that because he didn't have the best passing ability for most of the season or towards the end of the season. Now, I thought up until COVID, when he was out with that, he looked great. And I think he can get back on that trajectory. But my only thing is Cam Newton's throwing motion and, sometimes his ball placement can be pretty wonky. And he's had a lot of injuries over the years that I don't necessarily trust him as much right now. Now, that's not to say that I trust Mac Jones the most. We've never seen him take a regular season snap, but I'd be more than willing to throw him out there. And who knows, if Cam does start, which it seems like he probably will, we don't know if he'll get COVID or injured again, and that's a very real possibility. So Mac Jones could have that opportunity to kind of go through the back door with Cam Newton being out at some point this year.
Yeah, no, and I hear all of that. I think that's really the logical way to look at it. I do. But I'm just sitting here from the standpoint, and I just keep saying if Cam Newton's right, and given how he's looked, especially in preseason game 2 and preseason game 3, I just keep thinking that, there just might be a ceiling that maybe Mac Jones wouldn't be ready to reach. It's not that Mac Jones, it's not that he's not going to reach that ceiling because he's unathletic or whatever. Like, he can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL with the current arm strength he has, because his arm, first of all, is not as weak as I think people saw. The first game, I thought it looked really weak. I thought he was throwing floaters. But since then, to me, Mac Jones's arm has looked like more than capable to be an above average NFL, or not an above average, but a more than adequate NFL arm. And two, Mac Jones's athleticism, I think the reason it gets slept on is because he was in the same draft as Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. Four guys who are within the top 12 athletes at quarterback in the NFL already. And Mac Jones's athleticism probably falls somewhere between 15 and 20, but he's actually a pretty good athlete. I mean, everybody loves the tennis background when they talk about Mac Jones. But what I wanted to say was, I think that his ceiling as a rookie is only so much. And from that standpoint, that's where I just sit here and say Cam Newton, given how promising it looked before COVID last year, given that there was not a lot of help for Cam Newton outside the numbers, and they've remedied that a little. They've made that a little bit better for him by getting Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith. I think with his running ability, he had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. Their rushing ability, I think it's definitely something that they should try and pursue, even if, because I think just the boom quality with Cam Newton this season could be possibly Super Bowl bound.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think they're kind of flying under the radar right now. That defense is going to get back to more of a full strength. So we'll see what they do in the AFC East, though, because, I mean, that division, Bills, Dolphins, if Zach Wilson looks really good with the Jets, I mean, they're a year or two away. And then the Patriots, obviously, last year were solid, but just missed out on the playoffs, and I think they could go back this year. So we'll see what they do. But all I know is I would be very surprised if we don't see Cam Newton and Mac Jones playing this year.
Yeah. And the coach, we're 100% with you on this one. Their run game is special. That most underrated thing about the NFL last season was the last few games of the season, the Patriots' run game became serious. Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, J.J. Taylor. I mean, they were able to just trade Sony Michel to the Rams because they were so confident. So I'm very, very bullish on how good their run game will be.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, we've reached the end of our show. It's been a long time since we've taken your questions, so we thought we would take at least 15, 20 minutes and take a few questions. We appreciate all of your support. Please subscribe to our channel, Blake and Vish Sports. Please like this video. Comment down below all the reasons why you think that we were wrong in this video. Again, if it's true that we were wrong, we will 100% admit it, but we enjoy the back and forth, and we enjoy all of you sitting in here with us. I mean, the comment section to our streams, like, I always think Grant's comment sections are undefeated, but I like our comment sections better. I mean, today we had the coach bringing the heat and the fire. Last time we had, people talking about Lisa Wilson in the chat, and we're just missing Pinor today, unfortunately, but luckily we have some normal favorites like Jamal, who's always here, number one supporter, and then of course Mr. Ted Wagner, who's always in here talking about God knows what, but he's at least in here, so we always appreciate you, Ted. But if you have any questions, please just throw them into the comments. We'll find them and we will discuss them. Oh, never mind. Pinor is here. That's good to know. But Blake, I think there have been a couple questions, but
we can this was the first one because I wanted to hear your thoughts. So Jamie or Jaime, I think it's Jamie, but you never know. Hurd's been a 49er for 3 years. He should know the playbook by now. He's out there running into his teammates while in motion, and his teammates had to line up off ball to avoid flag. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of Hurd, not
Look,
much. I know he's been injured a lot, but
yeah, this to me is a little bit of an overrated thing because the thing you have to understand about the NFL playbook, and I luckily own multiple Kyle Shanahan installs. I have his Niners 2018, I have his Washington 2012, and I have his Atlanta 2016. Is it's all theory. So you're studying the routes and all of that, but there's a reason NFL teams go out and practice how they line up and how they actually execute it. Like I can read a cooking book and know how to make a dish and make mistakes on making that dish when I try to actually cook it. The playbook is like the cooking book. You have to be able to go out there and have the practice to execute. And Jalen Hurd has not practiced since his rookie season in 2019. He got hurt with his back. He didn't practice. He tore his ACL when he was still rehabbing his back on the side and hadn't fully recovered there yet. So there are going to be execution errors. It's not a matter of does he know the playbook or that. It's just the fact that he's had very few opportunities to practice. Even this year, he's been in and out of the lineup because of his knee.
yeah. I mean, I guess my question is, at what point do you say like this was just not like he's just been injured too much to like keep? Like at what point does that happen? Because it's been 3 years. You took him in the third round. He hasn't really lived up to what you thought he would be. At what point do you sort of kind of cut bait with him, or do you think you give him this year? Because
I think you have to just give him this year's opportunity. You invested too much in him. He's really talented. Just see what happens, I think.
interesting. But yeah, that's Jamie's question about
DSF 49ers. Haha. Hey, make sure you guys subscribe to DSF 49ers. I'm sure you already have. Brad Graham, best in the business, amazing at what he does. Make sure you subscribe and follow him on Twitter at Brad Graham, I think, and DSF 49ers. Best at what he does. There's been quite a few good questions, actually. Jamal has this question. These are about the two rookie corners. I don't know how much you've watched them, Blake. They drafted Ambry Thomas in the third round and Diamador Lenore in the fifth round. Do you think you can expect a lot from them this season?
Yeah, so the one guy I was keying in on was Ambry Thomas, and I believe it was during the first game. And I was not the most excited when I first saw him. I felt like he was getting almost picked on in the preseason game. He was getting targeted a lot. He had a few breakups. He had one play down the sideline that I thought he was a little grabby on that I was surprised wasn't called, but it wasn't. So like good for him on that coverage. But I thought he was getting targeted a ton in that first game. Just interesting sort of tidbit from watching him because I wasn't really like trying to key in on everyone. I was more just like, I want to see Lance. I want to see some of these other guys. And I was like, Ambry Thomas is in like every single play that happens. So, it's preseason. That does need to be stressed, but I thought he was getting picked on a decent amount in that game.
So he's another case of a guy who missed out on last season. So I just think it's too early to write him off or anything because he's had a rough training camp. That's what people have said, and he's had a very very difficult preseason. I mean, he's been very grabby. That stood out to me too, and NFL more than ever they call every kind of grab. So I do think it's too early to say anything about him. It's not been as good as you would maybe hope, but I mean, again, drafting a cornerback after the first 50 picks in the draft is a risky proposition in general. If you get a starter out of that guy or even a solid contributor, it's a big deal because you need the elitist of the elite athletes to play corner at a starting level in the NFL. That's why they get drafted in the top 50 picks. I mean, which top five corner, whether it's Jair Alexander, Stephon Gilmore, Marlon Humphrey, Jalen Ramsey, these are all top 20 picks in the draft because their movement skills are elite. So that's what I got to say in regards to that. I do think Diamador Lenore can be a contributor. To me, he plays a style of corner that could contribute for the 49ers. He plays confident. He's good at the line of scrimmage. He's good at pressing at the line of scrimmage. He's athletic. He tackles well. He plays with a lot of confidence, and he plays with toughness. And within the Niners scheme, which is a zone-heavy defense, they play a lot of quarters coverage. I do think Deommodore Lenoir could be a contributor, but I mean, obviously, it's too early to tell. But I think the best case scenario for the 49ers is if their 5 secondary players who all have wide history of injuries, but if all their 5 secondary players, whether it's Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Mosley, Jaquaski Tart, Jimmy Ward, and K'Wan Williams can stay healthy, I think it would be the best possible thing for the 49ers because those guys are all very good players at their positions. They all just have a very long injury history.
And I mean, just think of it this way, too. Like, you get Revis, Jason Verrett, Kwaski, Jimmy Ward, K'Wan Williams. Like, that's one of the better secondaries in the league if Lenoir turns into Revis. It could be
Lenoir turns into Revis.
Yeah.
It might jump into the best secondary in the league.
Yeah, I mean that would not be the worst thing, right? And then the coach, thanks again for like donating. Like, you don't have to; you can just send in questions. We'll still put them up there. But the coach says, guys, it's been 2 years of season-ending injuries, in reference to Jalen Hurd. Or I guess treating this as if he's just been collecting dust on the sidelines like Pettis. Rehab is hard. He's earned his shot. Ease him in. Vish, what are your initial thoughts on this?
We agree with you, Coach. We agree with you 100%. We think he should be given a shot. I don't. Again, I talked about it earlier this morning on Grant's show when we were talking about Jalen Hurd. Does he deserve to make this team? I still thought, in spite of coming off a serious back injury and coming off a torn ACL, he looked like he had more movement skills, even laterally. Now, he didn't have the same movement skills he had pre-injury, what I saw 2 years ago in him in college. But to me, he looked like he had better movement skills than Mohamed Sanu and Juwan Jennings and those other guys that are, 4 through 6 in the depth chart of the receiving core. So I'm 100% with you. Like, I just give him another year.
So if he was injured this year to a season-ending injury, would you be willing to get him back next year, do you think?
I mean, that's a no lose, right? Bringing him into camp and seeing where his body's at is it's there's no loss in doing that. But I mean, it just depends how willing the 49ers are at that point to be patient with going through the rehab process with him again. And you would have to really acknowledge how difficult it would be on him mentally, because I feel like injury is the biggest difficulty. It's not just the physical; it's the mental aspect of being able to come back from injuries. Excuse me, that makes it so difficult.
And I'm just like, even thinking about someone who's on their team a little bit ago, Kevin White. Like, that is very, very tough to come back from that many injuries, and you can't really predict it. There's no science to being quote unquote injury prone necessarily. So it's like, it is tough, but maybe he can be a playmaker this year, and get some meaningful snaps hopefully during the regular season.
The coach again. Pro tip, Blake: never turn down money. Hey, Coach, we really appreciate you. You're far too kind, and we appreciate not only the donations, but we also appreciate the consistent comments in the comment section. It's really helped our show move forward. And even though you disagree with us, we love the engagement. So thank you so much. And again, everybody, please like, subscribe, comment down below. And we love the interaction and the support from every single one of you. We're almost 50 episodes in, and we couldn't have done it without all of your support. Thank you.
I think we could maybe do one more question, and it was from one of the GOATs, Jamal Armstrong. So Jamal says, our running backs look great. Whoever gets cut will get picked up, in my opinion. Which RB do you cut and why?
Vish, I would cut Jermichael Hasty. We actually talked about this on the phone a little bit earlier. To me, it comes down to to me, Trey Sermon, Raheem Mostert are both automatics. To me, Jeff Wilson would be an automatic, but unfortunately, he's hurt. He is apparently standing up. Kyle Juszczyk, I mean, technically they're going to keep 5 running backs. Kyle Juszczyk's the fullback. So that's the third. So now you're left essentially with two open spots with 3 players: Wayne Gallman, JaMycal Hasty, and Elijah Mitchell. The reason I say Hasty first is Elijah Mitchell was a 5th-round draft pick, so he has that advantage. 2, Hasty has ball security issues. 3, the best running back on this football team in pass protection is Wayne Gallman. The best running back on this team in pass protection before was Tevin Coleman. That's why Tevin Coleman used to play so many snaps for this football team. They need Wayne Gallman's pass protection. They need his consistency in both the receiving game and the run game. He's not as explosive as Hasty, but you can find other athletes as explosive as Hasty. Hasty has ball security issues. Wayne Gallman doesn't bring those same issues. So to me, I would personally keep Wayne Gallman. And then Elijah Mitchell also did flash on special teams in his first preseason game against the Raiders. He had a great play and kickoff coverage to start off the game, and then he had a 49-yard kick return. So if he's adding special teams value, I know Hasty has been playing special teams, but from that standpoint, even if Hasty gets picked up, I just think you have 4 other more capable running backs to go with Jeff Wilson Jr., who's already coming back. So for those reasons, the running backs I would keep would be Raheem Mostert, Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell, and Wayne Gallman.
Yeah, so you said we talked about it. I kind of had the same thought process. So, like, Hasty's best attribute is that he's super explosive, and he's more explosive than Gallman. But every single other running back is super explosive on the Niners. Mostert, incredibly explosive. Sermon, 10-yard split, one of the best. And then Jeff Wilson Jr., also incredibly explosive. That's 3 guys right there that are just super explosive. So there's that.
And Elijah Mitchell, 4-3.
Yeah, and Elijah Mitchell. I didn't even include him. So that's 4 guys. And Kyle Juszczyk, his name's Juice, so there's got to be some explosiveness in that. But just kidding on that. But there's that. You mentioned ball security. That's a big issue if you're a fringe running back on the team. Like, you just can't fumble the ball. And then I think the point everybody in the chat's been saying that is, I think, super underrated when it comes to running backs, and that's pass protection. You mentioned Tevin Coleman. You need at least one really, really good pass protector. For the Packers, that was Jamal Williams. If you remember Zeke, how great his pass protection was talked about, it's really important, and it's one of the reasons rookie running backs don't always play snaps early on, is because if they're dropping back and they can't pick up the linebacker and your quarterback gets sacked, like, there's someone else. They'll find someone else to do that for you. And for the 49ers, that's going to be Wayne Gallman.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. But you were talking about rookie running backs playing early on is due to pass protection, right?
Yeah, that can be an issue.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, if you want to know how much Kyle Shanahan values.
So I want to say this is Vish cutting out, but I think he was going on to say that Kyle Shanahan values running backs who can pass a lot.
Yeah, I'm back now, but
that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought you were getting.
Going back. The reason if you want to know how much Kyle Shanahan, you might have brought this up, values pass protection. The Atlanta Falcons would have a Super Bowl ring right now if Tevin Coleman never got hurt in that game. Devonta Freeman screwed up a pass protection assignment that if he doesn't screw it up, guess what? You got Matt Ryan throwing a touchdown to a wide open Taylor Gabriel down the field. Devonta Freeman screwed up the pass protection. You know who doesn't screw up pass protection assignments? Tevin Coleman. So it's very important to have a running back who's excellent in pass protection. You brought up Zeke Elliott, obviously. I mean, Zeke Elliott is maybe the best pass protection running back to come out of the draft in a long time. He was unbelievable at it at Ohio State. And so to me, the explosive element, I personally think it's overrated too a little bit. I think Wayne Gallman adds a different style, which is still effective. It's not an ineffective style. It's just not the one cut, hit the hole, and try to score a touchdown. And you don't always need a one cut explosive runner. They already have that in Raheem Mostert, Elijah Mitchell, and Trey Sermon is kind of a little bit mix of both, and Jeff Wilson's also a mix of both. So to me, you can move on from JaMycal Hasty. And the final point on Hasty, right? We brought up the aspect of the fact that Elijah Mitchell's a draft pick and all of that. You can find other JaMycal Hasty. There's a reason JaMycal Hasty, no offense to him, seems like a really good player. I hope he has success somewhere else, but there's a reason he was undrafted and ultimately signed by the 49ers. There will be more of them available, these type of players. I mean, the Niners went Breida, Mostert, Hasty, and Breida was thought to be irreplaceable until Mostert was better than him. And Mostert will probably be thought to be irreplaceable, even though he's a hell of a football player, until Trey Sermon takes over. So within this scheme, it is possible to find these backs. And I think the Niners will be able to find one pretty soon.
Definitely. I mean, it seems like every time, it doesn't matter what running back they trot out. It's like 5 yards of carries per game. It really doesn't matter. I mean, they had like 4 or 5 guys last year come in and probably average something like that.
Yeah.
It seems more like you put any running back behind the Niners or behind the Niners O-line and Shanahan, and so they somehow magically get 5 yards to touch.
So guys, we've reached about an hour and 15 minutes. There's been a lot of good questions in here. And because of that, we are introducing a new, excuse me, my nose has been very itchy. But we are introducing a new segment to our show. We will be streaming now with a real schedule. We will be streaming on Mondays and Fridays through our school year. And on Mondays, we will be talking about, the most prevalent topics from Sunday's football games and Sunday's biggest storylines. And on Fridays, which is the next day we will be streaming, we will be just doing Q&As. And we will take all your questions because there's been a lot of good questions that have been asked over the last 4 months that we've just been unable to get to because of time reasons. So we were able to get to a couple today. Thank you so much for those. We will get to a lot of them on Friday. Thank you once again for all your support. We're 3 episodes away from 50. We couldn't have done that without each and every single one of you. All of you guys that have been in here since day one, like Jamal, Pinor, Ted Wagner, a lot of you. I could go, the list goes on and on. We appreciate every single one of you. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you again on Friday. Thank you so much for all your support. And before we go, Blake has something to say.
Just wanted to say, we're gonna do we're trying to do more rankings too on Fridays. Like how I'm imagining it is we're gonna try to mainly answer questions, but we're gonna do ranking the rookie running backs or the rookie quarterbacks or the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, MVP, just random stuff throughout the year on the Friday. But we also do like answering your questions. You guys ask a lot of questions that on sometimes that we want to get to, but we just have other stuff. But today we are happy we're able to get to them. And in the future, we're going to try to get to more because the bigger the streams get, the more questions. And we just want your guys' good questions to maybe get answered as other places don't talk about them. So, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously we will have stuff planned just in case. But again, thank you so much, all of you guys. We really do appreciate your support, and we will see you on Friday.